This figure shows the initial airway response after exposure to one of the inhaled allergen for the first time. The allergen or the antigen will be recognized by antigen-presenting cells or dendritic cells in the epithelial lining. As a result, T helper lymphocytes will be activated and start releasing inflammatory mediators, resulting in IgE production and eosinophils activation and recruitment. Interleukin 4 and interleukin 13, for example, stimulate the IgE production. Interleukin 5 activates the eosinophils, and interleukin 13 stimulates the mucus production. IgE coats the submucosal mast cells. Upon the re-exposure of the mast cells to the same allergen or antigen, two waves of reaction happen. One is the early or immediate phase and the other is the late phase. The early phase reaction is dominated by bronchoconstriction, increased mucus production, and vasodilation. Bronchoconstriction is triggered by mediators released from mast cells, including histamine, prostaglandin D2, leukotrienes, for example, leukotriene C4, D4, and E4, and also by the reflex neural pathways. This figure highlights the early phase reaction, so it happens after re-exposure to an antigen. This reaction is triggered by antigen-induced cross-linking of IgE that is already bound to the Fc receptors on mast cells. Mast cells released a previously performed mediators that will induce bronchospasm, increase vascular permeability, mucus production, and recruitment of leukocytes. The late phase reaction is inflammatory in nature. Inflammatory mediators stimulate epithelial cells to produce chemokines, including the eotaxin, which is a potent chemoattractant and activator for eosinophils. This results in recruitment of T helper type II lymphocytes, eosinophils, and other leukocytes, and also amplifying the inflammatory reaction. As I mentioned in the previous slide, the late phase reaction is inflammatory in nature. Leukocytes recruited to the site of reaction, including neutrophils, eosinophils, basophils, lymphocytes, and monocytes, initiate the late phase reaction. Eosinophils release the major basic protein and eosinophil cationic protein that cause damage to the epithelium. Repeated bouts of inflammation will lead to structural change in the bronchial wall. This is called the airway remodeling, which includes hypertrophy of the bronchial smooth muscles, hypertrophy of the mucous glands, increased vascularity, and deposition of subepithelial collagen. This figure shows a comparison of normal airway to the left and an airway involved by asthma to the right. As you can appreciate in the right figure, there is a green layer of mucus overlying the surface epithelium. Asthmatic airway is marked by accumulation of mucus in the bronchial lumen. Usually this happens secondary to the increased number of the mucus-secreting goblet cells in the mucosa and hypertrophy of the submucosal glands. The mucosa here is seen just below this thick layer of mucus and shows frequent mucus-secreting goblet cells. Then you can appreciate the thickened basement membrane beneath the epithelium, with intense chronic inflammation composed of eosinophils, macrophages, and other inflammatory cells. Smooth muscles hypertrophy and hyperplasia, along with hypertrophy of submucosal glands, can be appreciated too. So the airways in patients with asthma show the following: increased number of mucus-secreting goblet cells, hypertrophy of submucosal glands, accumulation of mucus in the bronchial lumen, thickened basement membrane, intense chronic inflammation, and hypertrophy and hyperplasia of smooth muscle cells.